Chapter 21. Li Hao received the sword. His thoughts swiftly spinning now, he did not care to deliberately hide anything, but was weighing the pros and cons. Displaying his swordsmanship, revealing his talent, would certainly dazzle the crowd, even without exposing his body refinement. Using just an ordinary child's body to wield the sword, although he could not exhibit the Tide sword skill at its peak, with just a hint of its quintessence and the sword saint's sharp eye for swordsmanship. His potential in the sword arts should be recognizable. Having a sword saint as a mentor, he naturally did not worry about others coveting his skill. However, becoming a disciple meant following the other to the southern sword hut to cultivate. That place is a holy land for swordsmen, yet its overall heritage might not match the depth of the divine general mansion, nor the richness of listening rain tower, and he needed to enhance his swordsmanship through chess tao and other arts. Given the sword saint's stern and no-nonsense demeanor, it was likely he would be extremely strict and might not tolerate his distractions, or perhaps, upon becoming his disciple, he could negotiate with him and have him stay at the Divine General Mansion to teach him. But the Divine General Mansion might not accommodate a foreign expert, comparable to a generation of the Li family, staying within its premises for long, and the person in question might not agree. Either forget it. He doesn't need to perform. At this moment, Jian Wudao's voice came, with a hint of displeasure. Li Hao, who was pondering his options, was startled upon hearing this and looked towards him. He Jianlan, snapping back to reality, hurriedly said, "Sword Saint, why is this so? He has no sword in his eyes, does not love the sword at such a young age. His thoughts are scattered and he lacks the makeup for sword training." Jian Wudao's expression turned indifferent again. Were it not for the setting in the Divine General Mansion, he would have already turned to leave, not bothering to explain further. "Sword Saint, the child must be nervous inside. Why not give him a chance to demonstrate?" Li Fu from behind hastily added, as it was an opportunity of a lifetime, too great a loss to miss. But before he could finish, the other gave him a glance. That sword-sharp, indifferent gaze made Li Fu feel a chill in his throat, as if his life was being sliced apart, and he involuntarily stopped speaking. "Sword Saint, how heir has been sheltered in the mansion since he was young, has not seen much of the world, and he couldn't practice martial arts naturally. He hasn't handled swords much, so it's normal for him not to have an affinity for them," He Jianlan said with furrowed, majestic brows. However, Jian Wudao didn't treat He Jianlan the way he did Li Fu, as she was after all the contemporary madame of the Divine General Mansion and in charge. He gave her a glance and subtly shook his head. "Madam, I understand your considerations, but you don't wield a sword, you don't understand swordsmanship. If it's just about reaching a common standard, or becoming a high-level expert in the secular world, with my guidance it would be feasible, but aspiring to reach the pinnacle, to meet the minimum standard of my sword hut, that's far beyond reach. In training with the sword, I only look at two things: swordsmanship talent and the feeling for the sword. Good talent, but no feeling for the sword, can only achieve a second-rate standard. Love for the sword itself, even with average understanding, one day when the essence of the sword is grasped, they can enter the ranks of first-rate." Unusually verbose this time, Jian Wudao made himself absolutely clear. He looked at Bian Ruxue and said to He Jianlan, "When this young girl came over holding the sword, I could see in her eyes the sword, her love for it. Out of 1,000 weapons, she would spot a sword at a glance. With that, even if her talent is lesser, as she continues to practice swordsmanship, cultivating the essence of the sword, her future achievements will be great, not to mention her excellent talent." Having said this, he turned to Li Hao. This boy, however, doesn't have the slightest hint of a sword in his eyes. Even when he took the sword, there was no emotion. No matter his talent, it's no longer important. He is not suited for the path of swordsmanship. He gave his final appraisal. After these words, He Jianlan was completely silenced. Silence filled the courtyard. He Jianlan wanted to speak, but seeing the determined look in the other's eyes, she knew further persuasion was useless unless they called upon the clan elders, which would be too demeaning for the Li family's status. She looked down at Li Hao with a complex gaze and sighed inwardly. She was all too aware that this child was wild by nature, often indulging in games of chess with the house servants in the courtyard. Such trivial skills were no more than playthings in prosperous times, yet with Li Tiangang and his wife not present, she couldn't discipline him too strictly. After telling him off a few times without being heeded, and the child secretly enlisting servants to accompany him, she was at her wits' end. Indeed, was all of this simply fate? As Jianlan remained silent, Jian Wudao, having made his point, paid no more mind to what others thought. He had been explicit enough. If the Li family insisted on foisting the child onto him, he would not be courteous at this moment. Looking at the little girl beside him, his eyes couldn't hide the affection as the coldness on his face melted a bit, and he said with a smile, "Little girl, what's your name?" Bian Rushue, the little girl answered honestly. Then looking at Li Hao, she said to the old gentleman, "Can you let Brother Hao demonstrate a bit?" Brother Hao is very smart, much smarter than Shuer. Jian Wudao smiled faintly. What use is being clever? Aren't those scholars and literati in the imperial courts all clever? Moreover, he had already noticed the complex thoughts lurking in Li Hao's eyes, the heavy considerations within. At such a young age, his impure heart would make it even harder to lay a solid foundation in the initial stage of sword training, leading him to distraction and delay. This is why some precocious children eventually fade into the crowd, while some inconspicuous and reticent ones may become great figures later in life. Jian Wudao did not like the phrase late bloomer. To him it was the ignorance of worldly people who could not see through the protective exterior of true talent, focus, and dedication. These are the qualities of genius. Some seemingly clever children, who know a little about everything and can interject in adults' conversations, eliciting laughter and praise for their intelligence, are exactly what one should avoid in the path of cultivation. Solid and steady, with a bit of spirit, that is the best seedling. Shuer, come with me to cultivate in the mountains, Jian. Wudao said gently. Then will you take Brother Hao with us? Bian Rushue asked, looking up. Just you? Then I won't go, Bian Rushue said immediately, taking a step back as if afraid he might forcibly take her away, snuggling beside Li Hao and hugging his arm. I want to be with Brother Hao. I won't go anywhere else. Jian Wudao's expression changed slightly and his brows furrowed. However, Bian Rushue, despite her exceptional talent, was after all still a child, and he did not get angry but turned his head to Jianlan and said, Madam, in taking Shuer with me, when her cultivation bears fruit, I'll let her come back. Of course, it might not take many years before you hear of her renown outside. He spoke with confidence because the moment he announced it, many people in the world would immediately recognize the name Bian Rushue, the new protege of the sword saint Jian Wudao. With this title alone, she would be famous throughout the province. Jianlan nodded slightly, naturally finding no reason to refuse Jian Wudao's words. Li Hao had already recovered his composure, his lips twitched slightly. It was fine, she had made her choice for herself, saving him the trouble of pondering. Brother Hao, I won't go. Bian Rushue clutched Li Hao's arm tightly, her eyes red and a hint of timidity in her voice. Li Hao also did not want to see the little girl leave, but understood that this was her opportunity, staying in the divine general mansion. She could cultivate, but everything else was limited to what was around her. Being the disciple of a sword saint, just the mentorship alone was a significant connection, and she could experience a much broader world outside. Selfishly, he wanted to keep the little girl. Having such a little tail around made him feel secure and happy, but considering Bian Rux's welfare, he elected to let go for now, softly saying, Shuer, be obedient, go cultivate with this old master, and once you have achieved something in your cultivation, you can come back to see me, then I'll take you out for something delicious. I won't go. I don't want to cultivate. I won't practice the sword anymore. I hate the sword. Bian Rushue suddenly burst into tears. Jian Wudao's brows furrowed as he realized he had underestimated the little girl's attachment to the boy. After all, they were said to be childhood sweethearts who had grown up together. In his mind, if it truly didn't work out, taking Li Hao as well might be an option. With the girl's talent, even with a worthless accessory, she was still worth competing for. Be good, you're already a big girl, you can't always cry. Li Hao wiped her nose with his sleeve and gently reassured her, feeling a pinch in his heart and a reluctance to let go. The adults in the courtyard silently watched one child console another. Many had complicated looks in their eyes, jealousy and envy mixed together. Children were still children. Unaware of their fortunes, they too wished their own offspring could enter the sword pavilion for them. The mothers would have kicked those children out the door long ago to let them taste how their mother's kick felt. Eventually, Li Hao managed to soothe the little girl. Bian Rushue, with tear-stained eyes, said, Then we have a deal, Brother Hao. You must wait for me to come back, right here, and not go anywhere else. Li Hao replied, touching her forehead with a nod and a smile. Jian Wudao's face also relaxed, his gaze at Li Hao even softened a bit. He could have ignored Bian Rux's wishes and forcefully taken her away. After all, she was just a bigger child, and no matter her reluctance now, a half-year's stay at the sword pavilion would smooth it over with time. But now that she was willing to go with him willingly, it was naturally a better outcome. Such talent should not be delayed. Time was precious. Shuej is tender-hearted. Old man, you must protect her well for me. Don't let anyone bully her, Li Hao said reassuringly to Jian Wudao. After calming Shuer, Jian Wudao raised an eyebrow slightly at Li Hao's address but didn't get angry considering the child's behalf and said indifferently, "Young fellow, don't worry, I will take good care of Shuer. By my side, no one in this world will be able to bully her." Good, Li Hao took a deep look at him and then told Bian Ruxue, "Shuer, if anyone bullies you in the sword pavilion, write it down in a little notebook and I will bully them back for you later." The adults dismissed the child's words as deep affection of youth. Not taking them seriously, before leaving, Jian Wudao paused and turning to He Jianlan, he said, "In my sword pavilion, there is a body refinement secret manual. I will send someone to drop it off later, placed in your listening rain tower. It should allow one to reach the 6th level. Let the child try it." He Jianlan was delighted, quickly expressed her thanks, and then clung to hope. "Can Hao truly not become your disciple?" Jian Wudao walked away, leaving behind only one sentence: "That child is fortunate, but his destiny is shallow." Chapter 22. As Jian Wudao left with Bian Ruxue, the courts were filled with the ladies and their attendants, all eager to catch a moment before departure and to say a word. Some even arranged for their children to practice swordsmanship on the path leading out of the estate. Yet none managed to attract Jian Wudao's attention. Access to the Jian villa was not easy, which made the desire to enter it all the more coveted. The colors of the courtyard seemed to fade with the departure of the ladies, returning to the empty silence of the falling autumn leaves. Li Hao held the sword Bian Ruxue had practiced with, silently watching the gate of the courtyard for a long time before slowly withdrawing his gaze. He then handed the sword to Li Fu behind him and said, "Uncle Fu, put this on the sword rack in my bedroom and tell the maids they needn't clean it every day." Li Fu took the sword with a sense of loss. Looking at Li Hao's profile with reluctance and a touch of self-reproach and guilt, he solemnly said, "Starting today, I will no longer indulge you. I will confiscate your chessboard and you need to start cultivating." Li Hao was startled and looked up, saying, "Uncle Fu, you don't think that this old man refused to take me as his disciple because of chess, do you? That would be an injustice." "I don't care," Li Fu said with a stern face. "It's common to find a good horse, but not a good horse trainer. Missing an opportunity that comes your way because you were not well prepared is your fault. From now on, you must always be ready in your best form, waiting for that chance that could come at any moment. Opportunities in life are rare. What hope is there if you miss them?" Li Hao protested the injustice, seeing that Li Fu was serious, and asked, "Then, Uncle Fu, what do you think constitutes a successful person? As a son of the Li family, you should make a name for yourself, defend the borders, and protect the people of the nation. That is success." Li Fu said without hesitation and with conviction, "Being a member of the Li family is indeed tough." Li Hao said with a bitter smile, "Since you bear the Li surname and enjoy its immense wealth, you must take on this responsibility," said Li Fu coldly. "Have I really enjoyed it?" Li Hao mused with an internal wry smile, but then thought of the pastries and fresh fruits sent by Fifth Lady and the nutritious porridge from the eldest lady. "Well, that did count as enjoyment. Uncle Fu, when you talk about cultivating, do you mean body refinement?" "Of course." Li Fu glanced at him as if to say, "What other path is there for you besides body refinement?" Body refinement was unpopular because it was hard to cultivate, had a low upper limit, and required great insight coupled with technique to compete with other experts. And among those who were forced to choose body refinement, some could persevere through hardships but might not necessarily have the insight required. After all, the sculpting of pain can lead to beauty, but it can also twist the soul. After some wrangling with Uncle Fu, Li Hao made a deal was willing to cultivate, but his chessboard could not be confiscated, and he had to have someone to play with every day. Li Fu could only agree, planning to talk about further cultivation once Li Hao had started. In the days that followed, Li Hao was forced to spend some time cultivating using a basic body refinement secret technique that Li Fu had taught him. With an understanding of the physical body path, his progress was swift, which surprised Li Fu, who did not expect Li Hao to be such a promising candidate for body refinement. Li Hao deliberately controlled his progress to prevent Uncle Fu from completely taking his leisure time away and only reached great accomplishment in the basic body refinement technique after 3 months. Even so, the results excited the battle-hardened man to the point of tears, and he immediately wrote a letter to Northern Yen overnight to share the good news and his joy with the couple on the border. And after a long and relentless accumulation, Li Hao's chess Tao level finally advanced. Name: Li Hao. Age: 7. Cultivation level: Power Passage Realm, Level 10. Swordsmanship, Level 2. Flying Phase, Hidden Bow Skills, Endless Sea Tide, Peerless Falling Snow Sword Skill, Peerless Physical Body Path. Level 1 Myriad Forms Tiger Press Skills, Stone Skin 100 Refinements Great Accomplishment 1000 Jiao's Holy Body Minor Accomplishment in Jiao Fiend Body Tai Chu Entrance into Starry Body Barbarian Bull Strength Great Accomplishment Chess Tao. Level 4 110000 Chess Manual. Collection, Myriad Forms, Tiger Press, Flying Phase, Hidden Bao State of Mind. Chess Spirit Skill Points. Li Hao glanced at Li Fu, who was always by his side, and chose not to immediately use the skill point to upgrade his skills. If it had been swordsmanship, simply infusing the memory would suffice, but he wanted to use his skill point on the physical body path first to ensure his own strength and safety. The insights of the physical body path could inevitably lead to changes in the body refinement techniques and his body, which would cause too much commotion. On this day, Li Hao followed Li Fu to the Listening Rain Tower. Upon learning of Li Hao's talent in body refinement, He Jianlan granted him the privilege of entering and leaving Listening Rain Tower at will, allowing him to select secret techniques indoors. Of course, Li Fu could not enter. Though he was a confidant of Li Tiangang, he was not part of the core members of the Li family's direct lineage, so his status was different. Li Fu didn't mind. The Listening Rain Tower was a heavily guarded place of the Li family, despite the absence of many guards around. No one would dare to come here to steal treasures. This place was safer than any lattice courtyard in the estate. Li Fu stood guard downstairs while Li Hao went upstairs alone, now at an age where he is considered sensible. He Jianlan did not let Xuejian accompany and watch him anymore. It was just him ascending the stairs alone. Li Hao had heard that the Old Sword Saint delivered a body refinement secret manual to the 6th floor 2 months ago, and he immediately headed straight to the 6th floor. Soon, he located a new secret manual that had appeared, Dragon Cicada Void Body. Li Hao started to flip through it. With the understanding of the first segment of the physical body path, he quickly grasped the basics. Collected. Soon, the panel displayed this body refinement secret technique, and it advanced to the second layer. Great accomplishment. The Dragon Cicada Void Body had 6 layers. Each layer refined would forge a different physique. The first layer was the static cicada body, which could sense the slight trajectories of air flowing over the body. The second layer was the subdued dragon body, storing within the body the strength comparable to a dragon or elephant. The third layer was the shedding shell body, granting the ability to exert force and tread through the air. His body made slight cracking noises, and Li Hao could feel that upon entering the subdued dragon body, another surge of power was born within him, probably weighing over 10,000 pounds. Although he was still in the power passage realm, his strength was vastly different compared to the average practitioner in the same realm. With a thought, Li Hao wondered if he cultivated several more body refinement secret manuals, could he accumulate even more strength? Thinking leads to action. He immediately began to search for them on each floor of the Listening Rain Tower. Before long, he found 7 or 8 body refinement secret manuals, all of middle to high quality. With enough practice, they could just barely reach the level of first-rate martial artists. Quickly, as one secret manual after another was collected into the panel, Li Hao felt unusual changes taking place in his body, making his limbs more robust. There was no change in his cultivation level on the panel, and Li Hao originally thought his strength would increase again, but it did not. However, some of these body refinement secret manuals were claw refining skills. Some practiced the legs, others bone tempering or organ refining. He could feel that although the strength did not increase much, these parts received a qualitative enhancement. Li Hao guessed that it might be because his physique was too strong, having already stimulated most of the physical strength, so these slightly inferior secret manuals were unable to provoke more physical strength but could enhance the corresponding parts. His Stone Skin 100 Refinements manual could increase the hardness of the skin, but it was overshadowed by the Jiao Demon Body from the 1000 Jiao's Holy Body. The epidermal enhancement brought by the Jiao Demon Body was akin to dragon scales, far superior to that of Stone Skin 100 Refinements, making it hard for the latter's effects to shine through. But other body refinement secret manuals complemented areas not yet covered by the previous ones on the 6th floor. Bones, liver, ears, eyeballs, and other parts all improved accordingly, while the strength did not change much. The power in actual combat underwent an earth-shattering change. Li Hao had an epiphany that he needed to collect various body refinement techniques, temper his body with them, and if he could practice every part of his body to a consistent standard, he would be invincible. At that moment, the rich heritage of the Listening Rain Tower truly made Li Hao realize how precious this place was for martial artists. There were not many manuals on Chess Tao, but there was an abundance of body refinement secret manuals. This place had plenty. Li Hao excitedly searched for the body refinement secret manuals within the tower and collected them one by one. Time passed. It wasn't until sunset that Li Hao walked out of the tower holding a body refinement secret manual in the distance. It appeared as if dust crows were flying across the sky, and the faint scent of food and firewood came from the front courtyard, signaling that it was time for dinner. Li Hao stretched lazily and flexed his muscles and joints. There were so many secret manuals in the listening rain tower that after searching all afternoon, he had only discovered a tenth of them, and that was just the body refinement category. Li Hao did not collect all the secret manuals, for instance. The barbaric bull strength that Li Fu previously forced him to learn provided no enhancement for him, as it had been surpassed by stronger ones. For example, if two manuals both focused on claw skills, having researched the stronger one, practicing the inferior would yield no effects, since the stronger manual would have already trained the palms to a high level, unless the inferior manual targeted different areas for training, in which case it could serve to fill any gaps. You finally came out, seeing Li Hao emerge. Li Fu was a bit speechless, having waited all afternoon. This fellow hadn't gotten confused by the choices, had he? He picked up the manual in Li Hao's hand to look, a middle-grade body refinement secret manual, dragon spine, focusing primarily on strengthening the back. Is this all you picked? Li Fu felt somewhat helpless. Didn't you go to the 6th floor? I did, but I couldn't understand it, Li Hao said offhandedly. Li Fu thought about it and realized it made sense. The manuals on the 6th floor were all peerless, and even he would have to practice them for months to grasp the mere basics. Don't rush to practice this one for now. I'll ask the 5th lady later to see if there's a suitable one for you in Listening Rain Tower. This one's too specialized, said Li Fu, hoping that Li Hao would practice a more comprehensive body refinement technique that covered the entire body so there would be fewer weaknesses. All right then. Li Hao did not decline and casually said, "Let's go, I'm starving. What's for dinner tonight?" Li Fu felt a bit helpless regarding Li Hao's lack of interest in martial arts. The two turned and left the front of Listening Rain Tower. Before long, they bumped into an old man wearing a straw hat, shouldering a fishing rod and carrying a fish basket, dressed simply. He looked utterly ordinary. Upon seeing the man, Li Fu's eyes narrowed, his expression immediately became solemn, and he quickly stopped and stepped aside, respectfully saying, "Li Fu pays respects to second uncle." Chapter 23. Uncle? Li Hao was astonished. In the mansion, Li Fu's seniority was calculated according to his father's generation. The only ones who could make him call them uncle were of the Li family's older generation. Oh. The old man didn't pay much attention to Li Fu's respectful greeting, merely answering casually before his gaze shifted and he noticed the richly dressed Li Hao with a dragon blood jade pendant at his waist and the body refinement secret manual in his hands. "I heard the Li family has a martial arts cripple. Is it this child?" The old man asked casually. Li Fu bowed with his hands clasped, extremely respectful, reporting to uncle, "It is indeed Hao. He is the child of Lord Xingwu, born with blocked meridians, unable to practice martial arts." "Oh ho ho," the old man slightly smiled. "So, it's that stubborn fellow's child, huh? TCH, the little guy plans to undertake body refinement, huh? That's a tough path." Li Fu still maintained a respectful demeanor, though body refinement is a difficult path. To let this child have accomplishments in the future, there's no choice but this. The old man scoffed with disdain. How great an accomplishment can body cultivation be? Even if one reaches the height of those few historical body cultivators, what of it? In the midst of thousands of troops, they're but a slightly larger pebble at best. Li Fu smiled bitterly, knowing that the other's words were not wrong, and only said, "But as a son of the Li family, to die on the battlefield is also an honor." Upon hearing this, the old man's smile vanished, his face suddenly darkening as he let out a cold huff. "What nonsense are you spouting? Should my Li family's sons only die on the battlefield? What honor? I think your brains have gone bad. To survive from the battlefield, that's what's truly called ability." Li Fu was somewhat stunned by the sudden reprimand, having heard that this uncle was known for his eccentric personality and unorthodox actions in his youth, indeed different from ordinary people. "Is this what Li Tiangang thinks, or is it your own thought?" The old man seemed somewhat angry as he asked. Li Fu carefully said, "It's what the Lord and us think. That boy Tiangang really has lived to become more and more incompetent." The old man snorted. "What ability is it to force a child? If you have the ability, let him break through the 3 immortals himself and enter the 4 stands realm, then he can defy the heavens and change his fate, regardless of any cripple, disability, or foolish dullard. All of them can be transformed into unparalleled geniuses. Instead of making the child strive, why not put in some effort yourself, knowing that you're incompetent, huh?" This Li Fu was left speechless and did not dare to respond. "The 4 stands realm? Although it's easy to say, how easy is it to enter that realm? In the entire Dayu, the number of people who have reached that step can be counted on one's fingers. By the side, Li Hao couldn't help but smile, thinking the old man was quite adorable. He had thought he was meeting a stern elder of the clan, like Li Fu, who would tirelessly give him some good guidance, likely telling him to work hard, that only through suffering could one achieve success, and so on. Yet, what he said was quite the opposite. Our grand divine general mansion, can it not afford to raise a child? Seeing that Li Fu had no words in response, the old man huffed, we fight wars, risking our lives, and several of our kids have died on the battlefield. Can't we allow a junior to properly enjoy the hard-earned wealth and honor? Li Fu, trembling with nervousness, could only nod his head in agreement, not daring to speak. The old man gave Li Fu a dismissive glance, knowing that it was useless to speak with such a blockhead. He had seen too much from his youth and knew well the beliefs and styles rooted in the hundreds of years of tradition of the Li family. However, a glint appeared in his eyes as he caught the little guy at his side snickering and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. You little thing, I call your father useless, and you laugh? Old man, I think you're right, Li Hao replied. However, Li Fu, startled, scolded, don't be disrespectful, how do you speak to your elders? But the old man didn't get angry, instead he was taken aback. What did you call me? Old man, Li Hao said with a smile, it's not like I can call you a young fellow, right? The old man's face darkened slightly. Has no one ever taught you how to address your elders? You call me little thing, I call you old man, we should be even, Li Hao said. Surely someone has taught you how to address your juniors, right? Li Fu, sweating profusely, hurriedly covered Li Hao's mouth and said to the old man, Uncle, please don't take it to heart with this child. His father and mother went to the northern Yen battlefield when he was born, and no one was there to discipline him. This is why he's become a bit wild, lacking manners. The old man slightly raised his eyebrows and huffed lightly, saying, the child does have a point, let's consider it even then. Li Fu was stunned, then immediately sighed with relief, thanks to Uncle for his generosity. Li Hao pulled away Li Fu's sweaty hand from his mouth, wiped his cheek with his sleeve where it had touched, then glanced at the old man's fishing basket, inquiring, only caught one? It's so small, who's it for? The old man spoke indifferently. The old man, don't fish for eating. Fishing is a pleasure. You're still young, you wouldn't understand. If it's just for fun, then your fishing skills are too poor, Li Hao said, to catch only one fish. What's the difference from the Air Force? When it came to the Air Force, the old man reacted as if he had been stepped on, his response even more vehement than before, glaring at Li Hao. What do you know, you greenhorn? I wasn't seriously fishing today. I also went to Xinhu, a lake I'm not familiar with. Wait until tomorrow and you'll see how many I catch for you. To add credibility to his words, he brought the basket closer to Li Hao's face and said, do you think this is just a regular little fish? This is a demon. If I were to let it out, this fellow here might not even be able to beat it. Obviously, this fellow he referred to as Li Fu standing beside them. Li Fu, hearing this, had an embarrassed look on his face. What does this have to do with him? Uncle, keep that dangerous demon away from Hao, he said cautiously. The old man snorted, in my basket, do you think it can still turn the heavens upside down? A demon? Li Hao, hearing this, became curious as he examined the small fish in the basket. The little fish was only as long as a chopstick, with a golden back and a red belly. Strangely, the fish's skull above its eyes had eyelash-like scales facing backward. As Li Hao leaned in for a closer look, the little fish seemed to notice the ignorant human race child and glared back fiercely. Li Hao could clearly feel the hatred and murderous intent in the fish's eyes and couldn't help but exclaim in a white was his first time seeing a demon up close. Old man, are your fishing skills really so impressive that you can catch a demon? How about you teach me? Li Hao asked with his head raised. If he remembered correctly, fishing was indeed considered an art within the categorization of the panel, alongside carving, painting, playing the zither, and others. He had thought that fishing could only catch fish. But in this world, it turned out one could also catch demons. How is this any different from practicing martial arts? The old man was taken aback for a moment, his eyes gleaming with interest. You want to learn fishing? Yeah, can I? Of course, you can. The old man burst into laughter and said, rare that you have an eye for this. Unlike those blockheads, why practice some broken body refinement technique? They'll teach you fishing and let you see my skills tomorrow. I'm not just bragging today, I was just unfamiliar with Xinhu. Still explaining at the end, he clearly couldn't let go of Li Hao's Air Force comment and wanted to prove himself. This Li Fu was dumbfounded and bewildered. Standing aside, he had finally gotten Li Hao to settle down and practice martial arts, and now he was being led astray? Uncle, Hao actually has a great talent for body cultivation. In just a short 3 months, he achieved great accomplishment in a low-grade body cultivation technique. He's definitely a promising seedling, you can't hold him back. As Li Fu spoke, he braced himself. It would be better to take a beating and lie in bed for half a month than for this to happen. What's all this talk about talent? Even if he masters it, how strong can he be? Can he match the Li family's 10,000 soldiers? The old man said indignantly, do you really want to turn such a refined and adorable child into a little blackie by making him undergo body refinement? I want become a little blackie, Li Hao thought to himself. Hearing no more from Li Fu, the old man couldn't be bothered with him anymore. He snatched away the dragon spine manual from Li Hao's hand and stuffed it into Li Fu's arms. Off with you. What's the use of learning such rubbish? There's no future in it. How right? Let's go. Have you not eaten yet? I'm going to slaughter this demon for you to nourish your body. Li Hao nodded again and again, thrilled. Uncle, you can't do this. The calling from Li Fu behind them was filled with desolation. Being led away by the old man, Li Hao also got to witness the courage of this Li family's uncle. His cooking spot was actually on the 7th floor balcony of the Listening Rain Tower, a place where the Li family's most precious manuscripts from over the centuries were kept, and now, not far from these ancient manuscripts, possibly older than any of them, a fire was burning. Through their conversation, Li Hao also learned the old man's name, Li Muxiu, as in the rest needed to recuperate, and also the resolve to not stop until one is immortal. Chapter 24. The golden-backed red-bellied fish in the basket was released, and it turned out to indeed be a demon. The moment it sprang from the basket, it soared into the air in front of the pavilion, transforming into a body tens of feet in size. Its fish scales were as sharp as knives, its fins like pointed banners, and from its mouth came the pleading voice of a pitiable woman. Elder, I swear never to harm another human life again. Please spare me. The huge, fierce fish head actually nodded up and down, as if imitating a person's bowing in empty space. Li Hao, smelling the pungent fishy odor hitting his face, couldn't help but pinch his nose, almost vomiting. This fish really is fishy. If I spared you, wouldn't I just be a pushover? Elderly Muxius' words plunged the demon fish into instant despair, trembling with rage yet not daring to lash out into the pot. Li Muxiu raised his hand and pointed. Although the demon fish was pleading, it had transformed into its true form and was prepared to flee at a moment's notice. Seeing that the elder was not going to let it go, it immediately started to sway its body, planning to fly away into the distance as if the air were a lake. However, before its body could even twist away, it suddenly trembled as if electrified. Blood violently spurted from its gills, and its fierce body split apart in midair as if countless invisible blades were chopping it on the board of the void. And what was miraculous was that the blood that sprayed out didn't even hit the ground before a breeze carried it away, disappearing from sight. The demon fish carcass, with its flesh burst and separated, left behind only a fist-sized, dark purple, round and lustrous demon core, along with several pieces of snow-white fish flesh. Elderly Muxiu raised his hand, and the demon core fell into a boiling pot of water. The snow white fish flesh, sliced by invisible blades into wings of cicadas, floated down into the pot after the water began to boil. At that moment, the elder somehow produced a salt container, delicately spooned out 2 scoops, and threw them into the pot before covering it again and proceeding to cook. Li Hao watched this entire process with amazement, developing a concrete understanding of the strength of martial artists in this world. This is what demons are, and this is what powerful martial artists are. Elder, that purple meatball is the demon core, right? Isn't it supposed to be eaten raw? Li Hao curiously asked. Where did you hear that? Li Muxiu glanced at him sidelong and said indifferently, aren't you afraid to be grossed out? Demon cores need to be processed with many medicinal herbs to be effective, and you can't just mix them haphazardly. After all, demons of different types have differences. Relying on professional alchemists for classification is essential. Eating raw hay, that's like ordinary people hunting tigers and using tiger bone to brew soup for strengthening. Can you digest it if eaten raw? Then what are you doing? I'm treating it as an ingredient, though a lot of potency will be wasted. Eating this has little meaning for me. I'm just tasting it. For you, have some soup and a few slices of fish to fill the belly later. You're not yet able to handle a demon core this level. I see. Li Hao nodded, not feeling any regret or loss. After all, within the divine general mansion were countless elixirs and treasures, not to mention raw materials like this demon core. There were finished pills refined from them. However, after his foundation establishment failure, he had already tested and found that these spiritual medicines were to him like plain food. They could only fill his stomach, and their extraordinary medicinal effects would be entirely blocked. Despite the abundance of spiritual medicines, the mansion's distribution to each household's members was extremely restrained. After all, Common medicines are 3 parts poison. Relying on pills might lead to rapid progress, but to reach the pinnacle realms, most still depended on their own strength to avoid backlash. The water in the pot boiled again, and the heat caused the lid to shake. Gently, the elder, with a merciless grip, picked up the ceramic knob of the lid and opened it. The steam dispersed instantly, but a light breeze dispersed it, preventing any moisture from reaching the pavilion's beams and columns. A scent of fish meat wafted through the air, but it was mixed with an undertone of fishiness. Li Hao furrowed his brow slightly, even though he had not tasted it. His instincts told him it wouldn't be delicious. Come on, try it. Li Muxiu somehow conjured up a pair of chopsticks, dark and slick, wiped them on his clothes, then plunged them into the pot, picking up a piece of demon core resembling braised pork balls and devoured it heartily. At the same time, he flicked his palm, and a swaying branch outside the pavilion broke off and flew to his hand. He handed it to Li Hao. Peel off the bark and it's ready to use. Li Hao made no pretense to disagree, but he wasn't a rigid person. He sat down next to the elder with a carefree demeanor on the top floor of the revered listening rain tower, casually peeled off the green bark of the branch in his hand, snapped it, and used it to pick up a piece of translucent fish flesh from the pot. To Li Hao's surprise, the fish flesh hadn't fallen apart upon being boiled, remaining intact like jelly when picked up, both tender and silky. He picked up the lid to shield himself from splashing broth and slurped it down with a hiss. How's the taste? Not bad, quite good actually, just a bit fishy? I don't feel it at all. Of course you don't, you reek of it yourself. Hey, you little brat, watch how you talk to me. I'm just stating the facts. I didn't say anything wrong. Humph, you only dare to act this way because you've met me. If you were with someone else, they would have spanked you until your butt split into 8 pieces. I wouldn't bother talking to anyone else. Ho, you've got quite an attitude. Thus, the old and the young started to eat away, the elder not showing any seniority and the youngster not acting timid. After finishing the fish and soup, both leaned back, spread their legs, and in unison let out a contented sigh. Ah, that's comfortable. They bore a striking resemblance in that pose. This kid. Li Muxiu glanced at Li Hao and suddenly burst into hearty laughter. Li Hao smiled faintly, resting his hands behind his head, looking forward across the eaves into the night sky. The faint starlight gradually emerged from the horizon. A gentle breeze blew from below the listening rain tower and the surrounding mountains, bringing with it a sense of coolness and relaxation. Suddenly, he thought to himself that the pleasures of the mortal world, being surrounded by servants, couldn't compare to the freedom and comfort of this moment. Lying still and resting for a while, Li Hao suddenly thought of something, turned his head, and said, "Old man, there must be some techniques to your fishing, right? Why, you want to learn now?" Li Muxiu looked at him with interest. "I'm going to get started tomorrow. How about we see who catches more?" Li Hao said with a chuckle. Li Muxiu couldn't help but laugh upon hearing this. Who would have thought that the Li family, known for their wooden-headedness, would produce such a witty and clever child? Good, from now on, you'll learn fishing with me. I'll teach you that fishing is also a form of cultivation. With one throw of my hook, the 3 immortal realms would twist their mouths. Li Muxiu said with a light laugh, his eyes brimming with pride, not about his cultivation level, but about his fishing skills. Li Hao heard this and couldn't help but chuckle, even imagining the scene and laughing out loud, a scene of a 3 immortal realms powerhouse, standing at the pinnacle of countless martial artists, getting his mouth twisted by a fishing hook. Too damn vivid. What are you laughing at? Don't believe me? Li Muxiu raised an eyebrow, his face slightly stern. Li Hao said with a laugh, "Believe? Of course, believe. It's just that the scene is too hilarious," and with that, he burst into laughter again, upon thinking it over. Li Muxiu also found the concept amusing and chuckled, saying, "Tomorrow when we get there, I'll teach you how to fish. Practice a bit first. Talking about it now doesn't make sense anyway. Let's sleep early tonight. I'll go get you a fishing rod." After saying this, he stood up, patted his butt, and with a swish gathered up the residual embers and iron pot on the platform, vanishing them into his sleeve. Then, with a single step, he disappeared into the vast night. The next day, early in the morning, just as the sky began to lighten, Li Muxiu woke Li Hao up. Fortunately, Li Hao had gone to bed early the night before and didn't feel too groggy, so he asked, "Are we going that early?" Of course, the best time to fish is early in the morning when they're most likely to bite. Li Muxiu had a smile on his face. Normally, when he went fishing, it was just him, his rod, and his basket, but today, with the addition of this youngster, his enthusiasm for fishing intensified. "This is your fishing rod, hold onto it well." The old man produced a black fishing rod from nowhere and handed it to Li Hao. Li Hao took it and found it quite heavy, but for his power passage realm perfection strength, it was nothing. In fact, his strength was 10 times that of a normal person at power passage realm perfection. But Li Hao estimated that this fishing rod would require someone at least in the 4th or 5th level of the power passage realm to handle it with ease. Seeing that Li Hao took it effortlessly, a flash of surprise crossed Li Muxia's eyes, and he said, "It seems that Li Fu wasn't exaggerating. You do have a talent for body refinement. Which body refining skill did you master to?" "Great accomplishment?" Only then did Li Hao realize that the old man had chosen the fishing rod based on his cultivation level. Putting some thought into it, the barbarian bullforce was an inferior body refining skill. Achieving great accomplishment equaled the strength of around the 6th level of the power passage realm. Chapter 25. Li Hao didn't conceal anything and told the old man truthfully. When Li Muxiu heard that it was bull strength, he nodded slightly without saying much and then threw a backpack to Li Hao. Inside are the baits you'll use. The demons of the power passage realm are quite fond of them. Which kind you'll catch depends on your luck. After speaking, he was about to take Li Hao downstairs. "What about my fish basket?" Li Hao asked. Li Muxiu laughed, saying, "Let's talk about it when you actually catch something. If you really do, well, share one." "All right then." Li Hao didn't insist. As the pair reached the bottom of the stairs, they found Li Fu unexpectedly waiting outside the building. "Second uncle, what are you seeing?" The fishing rod in Li Hao's hands. Li Fu was momentarily stunned, then his eyes widened slightly. "What else?" "We're going fishing." Li Muxiu glanced at him, clearly uninterested in conversing with this blockhead. Li Fu was on the verge of tears and said, "Second uncle, Hao learned bull strength in just 3 months and achieved great accomplishment. He has an extremely high talent for body refinement. You can't hold him back." "Didn't you say the same thing yesterday? Can't you come up with something new?" Li Muxiu dug at his ear and said, "What future is there in body refinement? At most, you'll end up at your level if you push it to the limit. Let me ask you, are you that strong? Can you hold off 10,000 soldiers?" Li Fu was at a loss for words. The 10,000 soldiers Li Muxiu referred to were naturally not ordinary troops but the elite warriors of the Li family's Yuan camp. 10,000 of these warriors were enough to break through half of Qizhou City. Far beyond what he could handle. "However, don't mind him, let's go." Li Muxiu, seemingly worried that Li Fu might influence Li Hao's thoughts, grabbed Li Hao's little hand and whisked him away. "Fu, you needn't worry." Li Hao waved at Li Fu. Although this man was stern and rigid in his ways, Li Hao did not overlook his care and concern. However, Li Fu opened his mouth slightly, wanting to say more, but seeing Li Hao being pulled away. The boy's bright smiling face as he looked back suddenly turned his words into silence. "The vast divine general mansion, can't it support one child?" Yesterday's words seemed to echo in his ears once more. Li Fu fell silent. Perhaps, in this moment, Hao was happy. At least he could have a happy childhood. 2 figures, one old and one young, disappeared in an instant, leaving only the man standing there, who, after a long gaze, softly sighed with an experience akin to riding the clouds and traveling in the fog. Li Hao was led by Li Muxiu, soaring through the sky. The courtyards of the divine general mansion rapidly passed underfoot. Li Hao saw maids and house servants drawing water and cooking early in the morning, the lady of the house strolling in the courtyard, and fifth lady taking her child to the training ground, earnestly giving instructions at the courtyard gate. These scenes swiftly passed by, making Li Hao marvel that the human world was already so lively at the time he normally slept in. "Are you scared?" Li Muxiu looked down and asked indifferently, "Afraid of heights?" "Well, not really," Li Hao replied. He felt no different standing in the sky than on the ground, as if supported by an incredibly firm force. The cold morning breeze seemed filtered of its chill, leaving only a cool wind that caressed his face and tousled his hair. Li Muxiu smiled slightly and said, "I'm going to speed up now." After he finished speaking, Li Hao felt the scenery before his eyes suddenly blur as they zoomed through the air. In the blink of an eye, they had flown out of Qizhou City, heading for the vast wilderness outside the city. Half an hour later, Li Muxiu slowly descended with Li Hao to the shore of a vast lake. The lake stretched as far as the eye could see, with dark waves rolling. Green water denotes depth, black water denotes an abyss. It was clear that the lake was bottomless. The surface was only slightly rippled, appearing calm and peaceful, but for this very reason, there was an eerie feeling as if standing at the edge of an abyss. Surrounding the lake were several large mountains with open terrain. Some were steep along the lake, others were more rounded and expansive. They landed at the base of one of the mountains. Li Muxiu looked around expertly and said, "The water here is shallow. You can fish here. They'll go to the middle of the lake to fish for the bigger ones. Take this with you. It can protect you in a pinch. Don't worry, if anything happens on your side, just shout and it'll be there immediately, okay?" Li Hao nodded and took the golden amulet, handed over by the old man. "Do you know how to bait? Let me watch you cast the line." Li Muxiu didn't rush off. Instead, he smoothed his hand over a large rock which weathered away to become a fishing platform. He waved his hand again to clear the messy bushes around, preventing the fishing line from getting caught on branches and weeds when casting the hook. Clearing those would inevitably delay a novice like Li Hao. Li Hao jumped onto the stone fishing platform, opened the backpack, and found a bag of moist, red dough inside. For these little demons of the Power Passage realm, dead baits are sufficient. Later, when you're strong enough, it'll give you live baits, which have a higher probability of success, Li Muxiu commented. Li Hao didn't fuss and nodded. He skillfully pulled out a piece of bait and immediately smelled a fishy scent. He kneaded the bait onto the fist-sized hook, which took quite a bit of bait to fully cover. To Li Muxiu's surprise, he observed Li Hao's technique and asked, "Have you fished before?" "No," Li Hao said. "Isn't that how it's done?" "It is like that," Li Muxiu nodded, taking another look at Li Hao but not dwelling on it any longer. He had realized yesterday after a few words that the child was bright. This stuff can conceal your scent. Li Muxiu pulled out a handful of powder from nowhere and patted it onto Li Hao's body, then continued. "Cast the line now. If you manage to catch one today, it'll bring you back here to play again tomorrow, okay?" Li Hao nodded. He then swung the fishing rod to cast the line as far as possible, hurling it 100 yards out into the lake. As the hook hit the water with a plop, a string of texts suddenly appeared before Li Hao. "Fishing Tao. Level 0 1100 fishing experience 2." A smile crossed Li Hao's face. Sure enough, the art of fishing from that game could also be logged into the panel. What surprised Li Hao even more was that simply casting the line had earned him 2 points of experience. Usually, he would only get 1 point for a game of chess. An encounter with a slightly challenging chess game would give 2 points of experience. This meant that fishing was like chess Tao, which suggested that this lake belonged to the more dangerous ones and posed a greater challenge for fishing. Remember, be patient, stay quiet, and don't disturb anything under the water. Don't look around, keep your eyes on the float. It might feel a bit dull when you start fishing, but once you have a bite, you'll understand that all the uneventful waiting was worth it. Li Muxiu instructed earnestly, worried that Li Hao's childish impatience might lead him to give up soon. After all, fishing was mostly something for older folks like them. A 7 or 8-year-old child, full of energy, would hardly have the patience for such solitude. Li Hao nodded. Seeing Li Hao's calm and composed manner, the corners of Li Muxiu's mouth curled into a slight smile, and he refrained from saying more. Quietly watching by the side, sensing no hook of his own, he stealthily released his spirit to probe the movements beneath the water, spotting 2 small fish swimming his way, one at the Power Passage realm 4th layer and the other at the 7th layer. As expected of the beginner's protection phase, there's already some activity so quickly. Let's see if he can reel it in. Li Muxiu felt a twinge of envy, though he could use techniques to make the fish bite directly and greatly cultivate Li Hao's interest in fishing. His own love for fishing made it impossible for him to settle for such dull practices. Before long, Li Hao saw the float move. His eyes lit up, and after a short patience, when the float was more than half submerged, he quickly pulled the rod up. With that pull, the line went taut. Something on the other end of the hook struggled fiercely, sending bursts of tremendous force through the line. But in Li Hao's hands, this formidable force felt like the friction of catkins, and with a strong tug, the other end uncontrollably jerked towards him. "Don't be too hasty. Watch out for the fish getting off the hook," admonished Li Muxiu from the side. Li Hao's heart tightened, and he promptly relaxed his pull a bit. Then, under Li Muxiu's guidance, started to skillfully play the fish. The black waters of the lake churned violently, splashing high. After fighting for about 10 minutes, Li Hao finally dragged the exhausted demon fish ashore. It was 4 to 5 meters long, with a mouth full of sharp teeth capable of swallowing an adult whole. If someone accidentally fell into the water, they would undoubtedly become a feast for this demon fish. A fish of the Power Passage realm had not yet learned to transform and had only just begun to show primitive intelligence, dominated by a bloodthirsty and vicious demon nature. As the fish was pulled onto the shore, text appeared before Li Hao's eyes. Fishing experience 37. Li Hao's eyes slightly widened at the sight. Wow, just like that. Almost half a bar of experience. The demon fish ashore struggled fiercely and even opened its mouth viciously to lunge at Li Hao, intending to devour the member of the human race. With a casual flick, Li Muxiu shrank the demon fish's body, turning it into a small fish the size of a pellet. He scooped it up easily and tossed it into the fish basket. "Kid, I didn't expect you to get started so quickly." Li Muxiu laughed and said to Li Hao, "How does it feel? Tired?" This fish was at the 7th layer of the Power Passage realm. The force it could unleash underwater was enormous. Not even someone at the 8th layer might be able to keep the rod steady. "You've got some skill." "Not tired?" Li Hao grinned with a smile. "All right, then continue." "Good, I'll use this fish as bait." Li Muxiu, itching to fish, finished speaking, then picked up the fish basket and stepped forward, flying towards the distance, and in the blink of an eye, he was reduced to a mere dot. Li Hao gazed distantly and observed the other party reaching the center of the lake. Even with his visual strength, he could only just make out a tiny dot. Shaking his head, Li Hao didn't look any further and continued. To seize the time to grind for experience, he baited the hook again and cast the line. Fishing experience 2. Li Hao sat on the fishing platform, staring intently at the float, waiting in silence. The recent catch proved that reeling in a fish could earn more experience, so he remained focused. Time slowly passed by, perhaps because the fight with the previous fish had taken too long, stirring up big splashes and alarming the surrounding fish. Li Hao ended up sitting for an hour without any movement on the float. Could it be that the bait had already been stealthily eaten? This thought surfaced in Li Hao's mind, and he wanted to pull the hook up to check, but he held back. He had thought of exploiting a bug by repeatedly casting the line, which would have been faster than simply fishing for experience, but on the second cast, he gained only 1 point of experience. On the third, he didn't gain any at all. Clearly, casting too frequently without a catch meant the experience gained just from casting was limited. Right then, the still float suddenly twitched. Li Hao's nearly numb eyes instantly brightened, but before he could continue to wait, the float plunged into the water, disappearing from sight. Li Hao hurriedly pulled the rod, and the line twanged tautly with a colossal force transmitted from the other end in an instant, weighing dozens of cauldrons. Chapter 26. It's a big one. Li Hao instantly realized from the giant's struggle that the thing in the water was not small. His heart went cold, and he dared not take it lightly. He didn't yank the fishing line violently, as doing so could easily twist the mouth and unhook the catch. Instead, after tightening it, he gently eased the tension a bit and then immediately pulled it tight again. In the blink of an eye, the previously dark and calm surface of the water suddenly erupted into raging waves, churning so violently that they spanned a diameter of more than a dozen meters. Li Hao could vaguely see an enormous shadow gradually being pulled from the bottom of the water and struggling fiercely near the surface. The shadow was ghastly, around 7 or 8 meters long, and as it struggled, the splashes and waves it lifted spread even farther afield. Li Hao tightened the fishing line and, following the same pattern of alternating slack and tension, slowly pulled the massive shadow closer to the shore. The thing at the bottom of the water seemed to sense something and suddenly leaped out of the water, revealing a flat and enormous fish head with a mouth full of sharp teeth like countless sharpened bamboo spikes. Its eyes, a ferocious and emerald green, fixed themselves onto Li Hao on the fishing platform upon seeing that it was just a 7 or 8-year-old child. The ferocity in the fish's eyes turned to angry indignation. Ignorant brat, dare to fish for your grandpa catfish. The fish demon actually spoke human language, emitting a sharp, grating voice. It didn't continue to struggle but instead swam rapidly toward the shore. The previously taut fishing line went slack in the water in an instant. Watch me eat you. The distance of several hundred meters was swiftly closed beneath the churning waves. The fish demon, intending to swallow Li Hao whole, suddenly leaped toward the fishing platform about a zhang above the water as the fish demon made landfall. The following text appeared before Li Hao's eyes. Fishing experience 68. Fishing Tao advanced to level 1 at the same time. Numerous fishing skills flooded into his mind, but at the moment, Li Hao couldn't afford to absorb and digest this information as he tensed his scalp and focused his thoughts on the situation at hand. The stench from the monstrous mouth was within inches, and he could even see the trembling of the pink, tender flesh inside the demon's throat. Li Hao, facing his enemy for the first time, felt a shock in his heart and a little nervousness. Thanks to the fish demon's intimidating appearance, fortunately its movements seemed as slow as a tortoise to his eyes. In the Listening Rain Tower, he had collected 3 books solely dedicated to the practice of visual strength in the body refinement realm. Combining and revising them, he raised his visual strength to an extremely high level, far exceeding what the power passage realm could offer. At that moment, he bit the tip of his tongue and quickly regained his composure. Then, with a sidestep and bend of his body, Li Hao reached out his hand, grabbed the fish demon's sharp teeth, and abruptly turned and flung it away. All this happened in the blink of an eye, the whole motion seamless and fluid. There was a thump. The fish demon hit the mountainside tens of meters behind the bank, its tail flapping hard against the ground, causing a tumult. What kind of demon are you? After being smashed silly, the fish demon let out such a trembling exclamation. It twisted its belly slightly, and years of cultivation made it feel the shadow of death at this moment. The pale, tender child before it, only 7 or 8 years old, was terribly frightening. It certainly couldn't be of the human race, but must be the descendant of some great demon's bloodline. Li Hao listened to the fish demon's words and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Still, to prevent the fish demon from having any unforeseen tricks, he decided to end the fight quickly and lunged forward. Suddenly, the fish demon's gills bulged violently and then it spewed a mouthful of black, fetid silt like a poison dart. Li Hao had been cautiously guarding against unknown moves, and the moment the black mud exited its mouth, he twisted his foot abruptly, dodging the attack, then pushing off with his feet, he rapidly closed the distance. "Don't, please spare me." The fish demon was terrified, attempting to beg for mercy, but Li Hao's punch had already landed squarely on its forehead. Just the terrifying concussive force of the flesh was enough to make the fish demon's body shudder violently. Its skull caved in with a crack, green brain matter spilling out. Li Hao didn't manage to dodge in time and got sprayed with quite a bit of it. A strong fishy smell filled the air, almost causing him to retch. No wonder the old man always smelled of fish. Constant fishing was bound to lead to such incidents now and then. Although the fish demon's tail was still thrashing against the ground, it seemed to be merely nerve spasms, lacking the previous ferocity. Li Hao, to prevent it from feigning death, added 2 more punches. Only when the fish demon's head had a hole smashed into it and green brain matter bubbled out did he stop his assault and step back. Moving away from the fish demon's body, he thought to himself that the next time he went fishing, it might be wise to bring a sword. Otherwise, if they encountered an even more formidable creature, instead of catching fish, they might end up being bait. Of course, with Li Muxiu by his side, Li Hao was basically safe. Even the golden talisman the old man gave him had not yet been triggered. However, Li Hao didn't like to rely on others for everything. After dealing with the fish demon, Li Hao then reflected on the numerous messages that had just appeared in his mind. Many fishing techniques surfaced one by one, making him feel as though he had been fishing by the shore for over a decade, observing the water, measuring the line, concealing the hook, and so on. He was well versed in various fishing skills. Li Hao went to the fishing platform, tidied up the fishing rod and the tangled line, baited the hook again, but this time with more skillful movements. With a roll and a stroke of his palm, he firmly wrapped the bait around the hook. Afterward, he gazed at the black lake. The once dark waters now showed clear changes before his eyes. His gaze could discern the subtle fluctuations of the water current, and he could see down to the depths of 7 or 8 meters. The ripples that settled after the water calmed seemed like patterns delineating the directions of the currents beneath the surface. Through these undercurrents, Li Hao's mind conjured a judgment. Away from the spot at the bottom of the lake, something was moving. Near this fishing platform, after 2 major disturbances, it's likely that nothing remained. The significant creatures from the depths had all fled. A thought crossed Li Hao's mind, and instead of casting his rod and waiting passively, he chose to take the initiative. He carried the rod along the shoreline, occasionally peering intently at the water's surface. The undercurrents below helped him determine the direction of his prey. Soon, after walking about a kilometer, Li Hao stopped at a spot resembling a bay. He picked a solid mound of earth to cast his rod from. This time, despite his vigorous casting, the heavy hook landed on the water with just a tiny ripple, without making the earlier pinging sound. Following that, the line was pulled by the hook and slowly sank to the bottom. Li Hao squatted slightly, waiting in silence. In just a few short minutes, the swim bladder showed signs of movement. Li Hao wasn't surprised. With this cast, he had essentially delivered the bait directly near the creature below. It was like front door delivery, a swishing sound, and the swim bladder plunged into the water. "Ah, it seems to be an impatient fellow," Li Hao chuckled softly and suddenly pulled up on the rod. A massive force came from the line, but during the first struggle, Li Hao could sense and judge that it was about 2,000 pounds, likely just a fish demon of the power passage realm with not fully manifested intelligence. No wonder the disturbance it caused in the water could be faintly detected from a kilometer away. He still chose to pull up firmly and tug lightly. The rod swayed left and right, and with every drag, the hook held on more tightly, not easily shaken off. Quickly, after toying with it for 7 or 8 minutes, Li Hao pulled the exhausted fish demon out of the lake. Fishing experience 23. The fish demon ferociously lunged at Li Hao once on shore, but he punched it to death and flung it onto the hillside behind him. Then he continued to bait the hook and fish. There were still more beneath the water. This old dragon is quite cunning, not showing even a hint of its trace. Above the demon lake, Li Muxiu's figure vanished into the high sky. He held no fishing rod, only a nearly transparent line that vertically plunged into the depths of the water. His fishing skills had long reached the proficiency of threading the line, allowing him to sense the situation below the water by the movements of the line at the bottom. This skill was no different from directly searching with his divine soul, peering into the depths. He had cast his line as covertly as possible, But the old dragon showed no sign of life. The small fish demon Li Hao had been fishing was eaten by another fish demon. It was a case of big fish eating small fish, but his goal wasn't to catch fish, it was to fish for dragons. Well then, it seems this old dragon must be in deep slumber today, hiding somewhere within this 3,000-mile black lake. Li Muxiu shook his head slightly, scanning the expanse of the vast lake which seemed to stretch endlessly before him. He sighed, reeled in his line, and, in the process, pulled out a fish demon about 10 meters long, covered in spikes, which was meant to be bait for the dragon. At that moment, with a flick of his finger, the fish demon's body immediately contracted and shrank to the size of a palm-length black-spotted fish, which he threw into the fish basket. Wonder if that youngster has had any success, hope he hasn't grown restless and ended up not catching anything afterward, Li Muxiu muttered to himself, picked up his fish basket and flew back in the direction he had come from. Chapter 27. Soon, Li Muxiu landed on the previous fishing platform. His gaze swept across the area, but there was no trace of Li Hao. His expression changed dramatically as he quickly looked around and immediately saw Li Hao crouching and hiding near a pile of dirt a kilometer away. Fishing really can't sit still, can he? Li Muxiu shook his head slightly and was about to head over when he caught sight of a fish demon with its head smashed in from the corner of his eye. He was momentarily stunned, then his figure flashed, appearing instantaneously in front of the fish demon. On closer inspection, he realized the wounds were caused by fierce punches. Li Muxiu reached out and touched the body of the fish demon, carefully sensing it, and his face changed instantly. Zhou Tian realm? And around the 3rd level. This fish demon was killed by that kid. A look of surprise flashed across Li Muxiu's eyes, and he couldn't help but look towards the distant Li Hao. Without another word, he sprinted a kilometer, and in the blink of an eye, he was by Li Hao's side. Boy. The sudden voice startled Li Hao. He was concentrating intently on the swim bladder, somewhat engrossed, and hadn't noticed when the old man had come over. Shush. Li Hao quickly gestured with his hand. Li Muxiu paused, about to ask a question, but stopped himself as he followed Li Hao's gaze towards the swim bladder. He could see through to the bottom of the water, and there a fish demon was circling near the hook, seemingly hesitant. What surprised Li Muxiu was that the hook was completely covered by bait, extremely well hidden, and it was impossible to detect that there was a hook inside the bait. When did he learn this skill of hiding the hook so well? While Li Muxiu was astonished, the fish demon circling below finally couldn't help itself. Although it felt uneasy, it couldn't explain why, and under the temptation of the bait, it heatedly bit down impulsively. It took the bait. Li Hao's eyes lit up as he waited for the swim bladder to sink, then he gave a strong pull. The hook immediately secured the mouth of the fish demon, and the pain made it struggle, causing waves to churn in the water. Li Hao was unceremonious. Quickly pulling on the line and utilizing the fish-playing skills had learned earlier, he skillfully dragged the fish through the water side to side, wearing out its strength. A few minutes later, the fish demon was dragged onto the shore by Li Hao, a small demon in the 6th level of the Power Passage realm. Seeing how easily Li Hao handled it, Li Muxiu's eyes flickered, and after Li Hao removed the hook from the fish demon's mouth and tossed it onto the hillside behind them, Li Muxiu finally said, "That fish demon over there, did you kill it?" Li Hao nodded in admission. There was no one else around, so lying was pointless. Do you know what realm that fish demon was in? Li Muxiu slightly narrowed his eyes, staring deep into Li Hao's eyes as if trying to see through his soul. Zhou Tian realm? Li Hao estimated based on the burst of power from the fish demon in the water earlier, it was definitely not Power Passage realm, correct? At least the 3rd level of Zhou Tian realm. Li Muxiu looked at Li Hao. You've only practiced the barbaric bull strength, probably up to the 6th level of Power Passage realm at most. Tell me the truth, have you secretly practiced anything else? Li Hao had already prepared his excuse, and seeing Li Muxiu bring it up, he pretended to hesitate before nodding. That's right, which one? The Thousand Jiao's holy body from the 6th floor, Li Hao said. Li Muxiu raised an eyebrow. What a coincidence. He had been thinking of teaching Li Hao this body refinement secret if it turned out he indeed had a talent for it, but to his surprise, the kid had already gone and learned it on his own and seemed to have grasped it quite deeply. How far have you gotten with it? Li Muxiu asked seriously. The 2nd layer, answered Li Hao truthfully. The 2nd layer was the Jiao dragon body, which could burst forth the strength of a half-dragon, even without stepping into the Zhou Tian realm. It could exert power comparable to the early stages of the Zhou Tian realm. This could also explain how he had killed that fish demon. Hearing this, Li Muxiu inwardly took a deep breath. The 2nd layer? He looked at the child in front of him, not even 8 years old yet, and he had already reached the 2nd layer. It seemed that Li Fu wasn't wrong. This kid indeed had a talent for body refinement. Even with the Jiao dragon body, Hooking that fish demon is quite difficult. This little guy, you not only have a talent for body refinement, but also seem very promising in fishing. Li Muxiu said with a face full of satisfaction and approval. Li Hao scratched his head and laughed modestly, but inwardly he was scoffing from the old man's tone. It felt like his talent for body refinement wasn't as pleasing to him as his potential in fishing. They all thought you were a martial arts waste. Who would have thought at such a young age? You've already slain a Zhou Tian realm creature. Haha, Li Muxiu burst into joyful laughter. No matter the future limits, at least at this moment, Li Hao's combat ability was 3 parts stronger than those supreme talents with 9-grade battle physiques. Ending his burst of laughter, Li Muxiu thought of something and looked down at Li Hao. Speaking of which, Li Fu probably doesn't know about this. Does he? When did you start practicing on your own? Why didn't you tell him? Don't you trust him? I started learning when I first entered Listening Rain Tower a few years ago, Li Hao said with an honest expression. As for Fu, he never asked me. Li Muxiu rolled his eyes. So if he doesn't ask, you don't tell, is that it? No wonder you were able to achieve great accomplishment in the barbaric bull strength in just a mere 3 months. With such a foundation, isn't practicing it as easy as eating and drinking? Was it your father who told you to keep it a secret? After thinking for a moment, Li Hao shook his head slightly. So it was your own doing? Li Muxiu's eyes narrowed. Seeing Li Hao's silence and lack of response, his mind raced through many thoughts, and a chill flashed in his eyes. Could it be that someone in the residence is coveting you, which is why you've kept such a low profile? Chapter 28. Li Hao looked into the old man's eyes and saw the chilling, killing intent within. He considered for a moment and merely nodded slightly. Who was it? Seeing that it was indeed so, Li Muxiu flew into a rage. To let a 7-year-old child suffer such an indignity. Those second-generation young mistresses were practically turning the world upside down. Li Hao shook his head slightly and said, I don't want to say for now. Why? Li Muxiu blinked in surprise, staring at Li Hao. Then he immediately understood the child's thoughts. You don't trust me? Think I might be related to those coveting you? You're overthinking it. I have no sons or daughters, and there are few in this world worth my concern. Li Hao continued to shake his head without uttering a word. Li Muxiu watched him with a stern face. After a moment, the anger on his face dissipated, and he nodded slightly, a touch of gratified smile emerging. We've just met, and we're not exactly close, so it's only natural for you to remain this cautious. However, if you're reluctant to reveal who that person is, why are you willing to expose your strength in front of me? You could have easily let that fish demon off the hook and taken the rod away with no repercussions. Continuing to hide, Li Hao smiled slightly and said, Because, old man, you're not bad at all. Li Muxiu was taken aback. Looking at Li Hao's radiant smile and those clear eyes, he was momentarily entranced. After a long while, he came to his senses and couldn't help but laugh with a hint of self-mockery. Then you are mistaken. I'm not a bad person, but when I do become bad, I'm not like a person at all. Then what are you like? When you step out of the Divine General Mansion, you'll hear of my reputation outside, Li Muxiu said with a smile. Seeing this, Li Hao didn't ask any further. You little rascal. So smart at such a young age. It's a bit of a pity. Li Muxiu sized up Li Hao, growing increasingly fond of the child. If such a seedling could practice normally, wouldn't he be another little Junyi? However, it was just a hint of regret, without much attachment. After all, becoming Li Junyi, what of it? Didn't he also die in battle? It seems like the destiny of the Li family's boys. From now on, there's no need to hide your body refinement talent from me. Display it openly and confidently. I've seen many geniuses, and yours is just the standard for top-notch geniuses. It won't scare me, the old man, Li Muxiu said indifferently. If there's anyone in the mansion who covets you, thinking you're obstructing someone, I want to see if our Divine General Mansion can still accommodate a child with body refinement abilities. After sorting out the catch, Li Muxiu flew back to Qingzhou City with Li Hao to foster Li Hao's interest in fishing. Li Muxiu did not land directly at Listening Rain Tower within the inner residence, but instead descended at the mansion's main gate. Then he had Li Hao carry the fish basket, and together, the old man and the child boldly strode into the residence. Old man, what is this about? Li Hao asked, puzzled. You don't understand. This is the fishing tradition, Li Muxiu said with his head held high and chest puffed out, appearing quite proud and composed. That's not including the one you killed, plus the one I used as bait. You caught 4 more after that, which for a beginner like you is already a great harvest. You must show it off to everyone. Is there such a rule? Li Hao was astonished. Li Muxiu gave him a glare. If I say there is, then there is Mu Tianho. The house servants and maids along the way were startled to see Li Muxiu, unable to understand why the sea-calming divine needle, who usually stayed in listening rain tower, would be here. They quickly performed salutations and knelt. Li Muxiu acted as if he saw nothing. Ignoring them and walked straight past with Li Hao, the two took many turns, intentionally passing through crowded areas in the practice yard. The family's young members were training, and an older soldier was lecturing from above. Yet, Li Muxiu pushed open the door and entered. The old soldier was about to frown, but upon seeing Li Muxiu's face, he was shocked and quickly got up to greet him. Old General of Yuan Camp pays respects to Mu Tianho. In the middle of teaching Li Muxiu, knowingly asking a question he already knew the answer to, said indifferently, I took Hao Er out to go fishing today. It was his first time trying it and he had no experience, yet he managed to catch these few little demons. Do you want to take them to accompany your drink? The veteran in the military was taken aback, and upon seeing the fish demons in the fish basket held by Li Hao, he quickly responded, Thank you for the generous offer, my lord, but I've already got my drink accompaniment for today. A tactful refusal. Having been in the mansion for many years, how could he not know the character of this old marquis? He immediately understood that this was a routine show-off. If he really took them, he'd surely incur the old man's wrath, and he'd likely come in the middle of the night to give him a secret thrashing. By then, he might not even be able to get out of bed tomorrow. He dared not take such a risk. Oh, that's fine then. Continue with your lesson. Li Muxiu spoke with casual indifference, then led Li Hao away. Li Hao had a face full of confusion. Is this the fishing tradition? It's too forced. After passing the martial arts training ground, they went to Eternal Spring Court. Uncle, what brings you here? It's almost time for lunch. Should I have the servants add a set of bowls and chopsticks for you? What would you like to eat? He Jianlan was chatting leisurely with fifth lady of the Gao family when she saw Li Muxiu. Both of them quickly got up to greet him. Li Muxiu indifferently said, Hao Er caught a few small fish, so I thought we could make soup for you. These were caught by Hao Er? He Jianlan was taken aback, looking at Li Hao holding the fish basket, and the few small fish within that were jumping and struggling vigorously. Otherwise, do you think I would fish for this kind of small fish? Li Muxiu glared at her in annoyance, his face showing displeasure. He Jianlan fell silent, knowing well that this uncle had a strange temperament. Disrespecting him was a minor issue, but one must never touch upon the topic of fishing. Yes, since it's a gift from uncle, I shall gratefully accept it. He Jianlan said immediately. Why thank me? It's Hao Er's fish. Li Muxiu emphasized. He Jianlan paused, then expressed helplessly. Then, thank you, Hao Er, no need to be polite. Great aunt. Li Hao chimed in quickly while casting a sidelong glance at the old man who was making him feel like he was on pins and needles, filled with anxiety and discomfort after handing over the fish to He Jianlan when the elder and the young one had left. He Jianlan looked at the small fish, realizing they were all from the Power Passage realm, and couldn't help but be astonished. She had previously heard from Li Fu that Li Hao had a talent for body refinement, and it seemed it was indeed the case. Did that child really catch these? Gao Qingqing was surprised as she looked at the small fish. Li Hao was known to be a martial arts invalid, and everyone thought he was just an ordinary person, yet he managed to catch small demons from the Power Passage realm. This meant Li Hao had started to cultivate, and his progress wasn't bad. Uncle wouldn't lie about fishing, He Jianlan stated. She gazed toward the courtyard's entrance, where the figures of the old man and the boy had disappeared. It seems the child has started his cultivation journey on the path of body refinement. That's a difficult path, the poor child. Gao Qingqing couldn't help but shake her head slightly and sighed softly. Even though Li Hao had a talent for body refinement, that path was too harsh, and not many could endure it to the end. If it were her child, she would rather they be an ordinary person and enjoy life in peace. It must be the seventh ones doing their really heartless, Gao Qingqing whispered sorrowfully when they got back to listening rain tower. Li Hao saw Li Fu waiting from a distance. Li Muxiu saw him too and snorted softly. Upon seeing the two of them, Li Fu immediately approached, and noticing the fish blood on Li Hao's clothes, his expression changed and he hurriedly said, Uncle, Hao Er, he went fishing. It's inevitable to have a struggle with fish demons. Don't worry, I was beside him so Hao Er wouldn't get hurt, Li Muxiu said unruffled. Li Fu breathed a sigh of relief and then handed over something to Li Hao. This is a letter from the Sword Cottage. It should be from Miss Shuer. Have a look. Chapter 29. A letter from Jian Lu? Li Hao felt slightly astonished, and the image of the little girl who liked to cry couldn't help but surface in his mind. Having been away at Jianlu for several months, he wondered how she was faring, whether she was getting used to sleeping there. Opening the letter, Li Hao began to read it carefully. The delicate and unfamiliar handwriting seemed to be that of the little girl herself, expressing both peace and yearning. Perhaps because it was a rare chance to write and send a letter, the page was filled with detailed descriptions of her daily life at Jianlu over the past several months, including taking a master, recognizing fellow disciples, training, learning the sword techniques, and so one very little detail carefully written out. Although the description was of everyday life, it conveyed profound longing. At the end of the letter, the young girl seemed to realize she had little space left, saying she would train hard, striving to come down the mountain early and urging Li Hao to wait for her return. Li Hao read quietly to the end, then gently folded the paper and replaced it in the envelope, tucking it into the brocade at his chest. Beside him, Li Muxiu asked Li Fu what the situation at Jianlu was. Clearly, this old man, who only ever went fishing or stayed in Listening Rain Tower, was unaware of the younger generation's matters like those concerning Li Hao, if not for the tumultuous news of Li Hao's martial arts disability which had once caused a stir throughout the mansion. He would not have heard of it. When he learned the full story, Li Hao noticed the old man's first reaction was a visible sigh of relief. His expression seemed to say, "Ah, so Hao doesn't have a talent for the sword. I almost thought that sword saint would take him away to train." Although he didn't care about Li Hao's training, if Li Hao truly had exceptional talent, he would not have obstructed it. Afterward, Li Muxiu scoffed coldly, his expression displeased. That old fellow Jin Wu Dao, relying on his seniority, bullies Jian Lan because she dare not talk back. Humph. With a tier 9 war body and sword talent, which renowned family wouldn't scramble to have her. He gets a bargain and still plays coy, settling with just a lousy body refinement secret text. One of these days, I must go up to Jianlu and have this out. Li Fu, listening, started sweating and couldn't help but smile wryly in his mind, not daring to interject. Others would rejoice at the privilege of being taken as a disciple by a sword saint who dared to haggle. "Uncle, how was today's catch? You got a big haul, didn't you?" Li Fu changed the subject, knowing the old master liked to be praised for his fishing skill. The man, who had always been upright, serious, and stern in the army, now showed a sycophantic and flattering smile which looked quite awkward and clumsy. Not knowing how to flatter but trying anyway was truly fatal. Li Muxiu glanced at him indifferently and said to Li Hao, "See, Hao, this is the importance of our fishing tradition. You must show off your catch as much as possible, or those who don't know might think you've returned empty-handed. You go straight home. How could anyone know you went fishing? And even if they knew, who would care?" Li Hao thought bitterly. "Let's go." Li Muxiu ignored Li Fu and led Li Hao into Listening Rain Tower. Li Fu hesitated, not stepping forward, and just before Li Muxiu entered the tower, he suddenly stopped but didn't look back, saying, "Little Fu, you need not worry about Hao's training any longer. He truly has a talent for body refinement. I will teach him alongside my fishing." With that, he stepped directly into the play of light and shadow inside the door. Li Fu was stunned, the complex and conflicting thoughts in his mind suddenly clearing as though a weight had been lifted. He bowed deeply, expressing his thanks, and couldn't help but feel happy and excited for Li Hao. If Uncle himself was to provide instruction, it would certainly surpass his own teaching. After all, this uncle's achievements are in no way inferior to that sword saint. Although Li Muxiu seemed carefree, he was a man of his word, no doubt influenced by the military family's teachings. Upon entering the tower, Li Muxiu collected some firewood, set up a makeshift stove on the terrace, and began filleting the fish demon he had caught that day. Casually, he said to Li Hao, "If you have any questions during your training, just ask, and it'll help you figure them out." Li Hao shook his head slightly. "Not at the moment, no?" Li Muxiu, in a displeased tone, said, "Are you implying you haven't encountered any bottlenecks yet?" "Humph, these body-refining techniques are quite formidable. It's impressive if you understand them. Forget it, show me your practice. Let's see." Li Hao thought it unnecessary, but seeing that the old man truly wanted to teach him, he didn't want to let down the kindness, so he diligently assumed the posture and rehearsed the movements. Li Muxiu had intended to offer some pointers, but upon closer inspection he found hardly any flaws and couldn't help sizing up the youngster once more. To have self-taught to this level was indicative of truly astonishing comprehension. "Not bad. Your current practice should have reached the 10th layer of Power Passage Realm, hasn't it?" Li Muxiu said, although he hadn't sensed Li Hao in detail to have practiced the 2nd layer of the Jiao Dragon body. His cultivation must have surely reached the perfection of the 1st realm. Moreover, compared to the common perfection in the Power Passage realm, The physical strength brought by body refinement was greater, slightly stronger than those at the same realm. Of course, this advantage exists in the early stages of cultivation. As for the later stages, body refinement had no later stages. As everyone says, it is a hard path. One must know that normal cultivation is already extremely arduous, and to be called a hard path, one can imagine just how much more difficult body refinement must be. Thus, very few could persevere to the end, and even if there were ones with great resolve, they often ended up withering away before their natural lifespan due to too slow progress with no breakthroughs. Li Hao nodded in affirmation. Not yet 8 years old and already at power. Passage realm perfection. Such progress in cultivation could indeed catch up to the heels of those top geniuses, Li Muxiu said. Next is the Zhou Tian realm, where strength is turned into qi and qi circulates throughout Zhou Tian. There are 2 methods to break through to the Zhou Tian realm. The first is to enter the 100 Jiao body, forcibly breaking through with physical strength. The 100 Jiao body also involves qi circulation skill. Cultivating it to perfection allows you to reach the pinnacle state of 100 circulations. It's precisely for this reason that this body refining technique could be placed on the 6th floor. Seeing Li Hao sit cross-legged and listen attentively, Li Muxiu explained in even greater detail. The Zhou Tian realm has 10 layers, but the disparity between each is huge. In the power passage realm, enhancing strength through powerful cultivation techniques and awakening divine blood can create a gap, while in the Zhou Tian realm, it's through elite qi circulation skills that the gap between the chosen ones and the common folk widens. Ordinary martial artists without backgrounds mostly practice inferior skills, circulating qi throughout 10 Zhou Tians. Mid to high-grade skills can achieve 36 Zhou Tian cycles. As for superior skills, they enable the cycle of 72 Zhou Tians. He looked at Li Hao and said, as for the pinnacle skills, they can complete 100 Zhou Tian cycles. That's the essence carried within the 1000 Jiao's holy body. Omitting body refinement altogether, it could still be considered an elite qi circulation skill. I see, said Li Hao with a slight nod. He had flipped through some books on the Zhou Tian realm and had some understanding of it. If one cycle of Zhou Tian meant possessing one's own strength multiplied, then 10 cycles amounted to 10 times that strength. And 100 Zhou Tian cycles meant 100 times the strength. That was the disparity, especially as one advanced in the Zhou Tian realm. With each layer's meridian opening, this compounded disparity became vast. By the 10th layer of the Zhou Tian realm, the gap between ordinary qi circulation skills and elite skills was like that between the earth and the sky. Major forces, distinguished sects, and geniuses combined, the top Zhou Tian realm martial artists, even if not reaching 100 Zhou Tian cycles, would at least achieve 72 cycles, allowing them to easily sweep through common Zhou Tian realm martial artists. The unsupported heroes of Jianghu, a pinnacle qi circulation skill in any distinguished sect, is almost of a heritage-preserving level, typically taught only to direct disciples or chosen successors within Listening Rain Tower. There are 3 such pinnacle skills, and the 100 Jiao chapter of the 1000 Jiao's holy body is indeed one of them. Li Muxiu explained, but even so, in our divine general mansion, it's passed only within direct lineage, not to collateral family members, so as to avoid inverting Tiangang and causing social upheaval due to human greed. The disparities in martial arts cultivation are ultimately for the sake of combat between individuals. Some people cultivate not to become the strongest, but to surpass others. Therefore, when they can't surpass, to diminish others is also a way of surpassing, and often more effortless than striving to improve oneself. This is why top powers and distinguished sects keep their extraordinary techniques secret and do not pass them on. Once they are leaked, those who obtain them may instead meet with deadly misfortune. Li Hao asked, "Isn't cultivation for the purpose of slaying demons?" Li Muxiu's tone paused, and he gave a glance, saying mockingly, "Slaying demons is the affair of a few martial artists, such as our Li family and other divine general mansions. But most people live in tranquil and prosperous areas where demons are forbidden to tread, and there is hardly an opportunity to slay them. Even when there is, how many dare to do so? Have you seen ordinary hunters, with no benefit, willingly go hunt fierce tigers and giant bears? Our Dayu is in a golden age. During such times, people seek fame. Slaying demons is for fame, competing and fighting are for fame. Founding sects and schools is also for fame, for the sake of reputation and wealth. Many pursue it continuously, a life not regretted in death. Who doesn't wish to be remembered by the world for thousands of years after death? Enshrined in the martial temple, cast in a golden image, with incense burning for a millennium." His voice was somewhat impassioned. but it carried not so much aspiration as it did some suppressed anger. I don't want that. Li Hao shook his head slightly and said, if I had a choice, I would choose to live forever. Chapter 30. Hearing Li Hao's words, Li Muxiu was taken aback. He gazed at Li Hao steadily, then suddenly burst into laughter, but his eyes revealed a trace of sorrow. So many affairs from ancient times to present are brushed off with laughter. It is ridiculous how many people in the world are far less insightful than a child, he said with that. He turned around. Li Hao suddenly noticed the old gentleman secretly wiping away tears. This was a strong man on par with a sword saint, yet he was crying. What could have brought him to tears? Li Hao, wisely choosing to remain silent, waited a moment until Li Muxiu seemed to have adjusted his emotions and turned back toward him, smiling. I just mentioned that there are two methods to break through to the Zhoutian realm. 1,000 jiaos is one, and the other is the Zhoutian breathing skill, he continued. Within Listening Rain Tower, there are two such methods, both of the highest caliber. Mastering one to perfection allows for 108 circulations within a single meridian, while the other can achieve 128 circulations across the entire Daiyu. They are considered top-notch, and it's likely that only the royal family's all-heavens Zhoutian skill practiced within the palace could surpass this 100 battle cycle heaven skill. He explained, 168 circulations, truly unparalleled in this world, that powerful. Li Hao exclaimed in surprise. Reaching 72 circulations was already considered superior. The fact that the royal family's method could more than double that figure, didn't that mean within the Zhoutian realm the royal family was virtually invincible? Of course, otherwise how could the royal family command the world? Li Muxiu continued, this is known as monopoly over cultivation techniques. Apart from the royal family, no others may learn or practice it. That's why powerful families last through the ages. Be monopolizing a domain. Li Hao nodded in understanding. Wasn't Listening Rain Tower doing exactly the same? With this tower alone, it was enough to ensure the prosperity or decline of the divine general mansion throughout the generations. However, the more supreme the cultivation technique, the harder the training, hence it also puts one's comprehension to an extreme test. It's not something anyone can master casually in our Li family, although there are quite a few who practice the 100 battle cycle heaven skill. Even more people opt for the other skill, the heavenly Gang Zhoutian skill. Explained Li Muxiu, the reason is simple. If it takes you 5 years to learn the 100 battle cycle heaven skill, but you can learn the heavenly Gang Zhoutian skill in 3, then in 3 years those who practice the latter will surely win in a competition. You might think in just 2 more years you could surpass them, but never underestimate the importance of those 2 years. When you finally perfect the 100 battles after 2 years, others may have already reached the sole successor realm. One step ahead is always leading the way. Stated Li Muxiu. Li Hao nodded. One should practice the cultivation technique that matches one's aptitude. This was key, otherwise, it's like an elementary school student trying to understand high school lessons, unable to grasp anything while being surpassed by those who progress step by step, a waste of precious time. Since you have an excellent talent for body refinement, I suggest you challenge the Zhoutian realm with 1,000 jiaos. With your comprehension, you should have the prospect of mastering it within 3 years, Li Muxiu advised. By then, at 10 years old in the Zhoutian realm, with 100 circulations in one meridian, you would only be slightly inferior to your father, he said. He's that formidable? Li Hao was astonished. Average people at the age of 10, if they have achieved power passage realm perfection, they're considered pretty decent. The divine general mansion was filled with marvels, and naturally, the expectations were higher. But reaching the Zhoutian realm at 10 was also a mark of genius, right? If my memory serves me right, Li Junye's talent was slightly inferior to yours. He perfected the power passage realm at 7 years old, your current age, and perfected the Zhoutian realm at 9, the soul succession realm at 12, and the divine travel completion at 16. That lad later went off to join the military, and am not clear on the specifics after that, said Li Muxiu, shaking his head. Li Hao inwardly gasped in amazement at these incredible feats. Consider that Uncle Lin was also regarded as having a decent talent, yet he was still in the divine travel realm in his 40s, and here were the geniuses perfecting it by the age of 16, and this was still considered inferior to that 9th uncle? Li Hao was momentarily at a loss for words, but thinking about 9th uncle's talent, which stood out among the tens of millions of martial artists across the 19 states of Daiyu, he found some consolation. Once you step into the Zhoutian realm and are cultivating the qi circulation skill, you must also learn the meridian opening skill specific to that realm. Your father, within 2 years, mastered both the extremely difficult top-level martial arts, the 100 battles cycle heaven skill, and The Dragon River Divine Meridianto reached perfect Shou Tian, second only to the royal family amongst his peers. Li Muxiu continued. Apart from the difference in qi circulation skills, the meridian opening skill is the same. The ordinary skills open one layer for each meridian. Reaching the 10th layer of circulation realm means 10 channels. With a mid-level meridian opening skill, when perfected, there would be 18 channels, and for a high-level skill, 36 channels. For the most supreme skills, there would be 54 channels. The Dragon River Divine Meridian is our Li family's finest meridian opening skill, offering 5 channels to be opened with each of the first 9 layers and 9 channels upon perfecting the 10th layer. Explained Li Muxiu. Li Muxiu looked at Li Hao, smiling and asking, "Now do you understand how much of a gap exists between the supreme meridian opening skills and qi circulation skills and the ordinary ones?" Li Hao counted on his fingers and took a sharp breath, visibly shocked. Both at cycle heaven realm perfection, the top tier versus the ordinary differed by over 50-fold, a gap as vast as the heavens from the earth. Should both qi circulation and meridian opening be of ordinary grade 10 channels, 10 circulations, the power they could unleash was only marginally superior to that of the first layer of the top-tier qi circulation techniques. The disparity was simply unimaginable. This also made Li Hao realize just how precious and important resources were on the path of martial arts. Average martial artists without any background could only cultivate ordinary cultivation techniques, becoming fodder at their cultivation level. And such disparities would, for countless martial artists, drive them to climb upwards by any means necessary, whether by currying favor with connections or through their own struggle, all leading down a bloody path of ruin. For this reason, top-notch martial artists could possess everything, renowned throughout the realm. This path was not easy to walk. If you were born with obstructed meridians, the difficulty of opening your meridians would increase, which could slow you down. However, with our Li family's top-notch cultivation techniques, at most you would fall from the ranks of the top prodigies. In the eyes of the common martial artists, you would remain an untouchable genius. Li Muxiu said, "In the Li family, far too many geniuses were born, having held high positions for so long, they had seen countless other minor forces and families rise meteorically like comets. Therefore, it was only extreme outliers like Li Tiangang and Li Junyi that could catch the attention of these old-timers, while the rest were akin to the numerous illegitimate descendants in the training fields, merely qualified members of the family." Li Hao nodded slightly but didn't speak. "The fish is ready." Li Muxiu lifted the clay cover and the scent of fish drifted out. He extinguished the firewood and took it away, then said to Li Hao, "Eat first. After you finish, practice here on your own. I have to go out this afternoon. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me tonight, okay?" Li Hao responded. The chopsticks used for skinning yesterday had not been discarded, and the old man handed them to Li Hao again. Li Hao followed suit, wiping them on his clothing before reaching into the pot to pick out meat and start eating. This time, Li Hao no longer felt the fish was too strong-flavored but savored the sweet and tender delicacy instead. After finishing the meal, Li Muxiu packed away the pot and the chopsticks, gave Li Hao a piece of advice, then with a sleeve flutter he stepped forth and disappeared into the horizon. Li Hao stretched lazily and walked over to the bookshelf containing the cultivation techniques, quickly finding the several books the old man had mentioned, all preserved in the glass cabinet on the 7th floor to slow the decay of the books. Of course, Li Hao believed that the Li family definitely had copies of these cultivation techniques stored in secret places. In fact, these displayed copies might well be duplicates. Li Hao flipped through the 100 battles, cycle heaven skill and the Dragon River Divine Meridian, but for a while, he couldn't incorporate them into his panelon, indication of their status as top-notch skills. He brought up his panel and, seeing the 2 skill points he had accumulated, he didn't hesitate to allocate them all to the physical body path. In an instant, vast amounts of information poured into his mind. When the first wave finished, a second one followed. It took him a full quarter of an hour to gradually digest it all, and his eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. He checked the panel again and saw that the skills he had mastered had undergone earth-shattering changes. Name, Li Hao. Age, 7 cultivation level, 10th layer of power passage realm swordsmanship, 2nd phase flying phase hidden bow skills. Endless sea tide perfected falling snow sword skill perfected physical body path, 3rd phase all-encompassing tiger press skills. Stone skin 100 refinements true form 1000 jiaos holy body 3rd layer 100 jiao body great accomplishment Tai Chu 3rd layer subtle body great accomplishment dragon cicada void body 3rd layer leap shell body great accomplishment chest Tao 4th phase 510000 fishing Tao First phase 1-1-2-5-0-0 chess manual collection, all-encompassing, tiger press, flying phase, hidden bow fishing manual collection, none state of mind. Chess. Heart skill points, 0. The enhancement to the third phase of the physical body path propelled the Thousand Jiao's holy body to the third layered great accomplishment, and simultaneously Tai Chu and Dragon Cicada void body also reached the third layer, achieving great accomplishment. However, what surprised and astonished Li Hao the most was the low-grade body refinement skill known as Stone Skin 100 Refinements. The realm indicated behind it reached true form. Li Hao's mind automatically gathered countless details about the Stone Skin 100 Refinements technique, enabling him to perform it beyond mere perfection. The stages of body refinement are similar to those of artistic skills, consisting of beginner, minor accomplishment, great accomplishment, and perfection. These correspond to the technique's beginner, dexterous, perfect, and ultimate stages. But what the hell is this true form? A higher stage beyond ultimate perfection. Apart from Stone Skin 100 Refinements, all other low-grade body refinement skills also bore the True Form tag. Barbaric Bull Strength True Form. Li Hao could feel, had its original flaws overcome, he intuitively acted upon the insights in his mind and started to perform the skill. Strength flowed through his body, chi force erupted, and his veins bulged like bull tendons. Concentrating upon his fist at the will of his mind with a whoosh, he threw a punch, and the curtains on the terrace over 10 meters away were set dancing by the force of his punch. This barbaric bull strength, upon reaching true form, brought a significant boost to his strength, at least 4 to 5 times more effective than before. Moreover, it possessed a sense of returning to the essence, where every movement transcended the original barbaric bull strength's flavor, embodying an indescribably harmonious and rounded momentum. It was as if this was the true face of barbaric bull strength. Subsequently, Li Hao started practicing the Thousand Jiao's holy body. In a flash, the vast force within his dantian began to stir, spinning like a windmill.